Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video. Today, our focus is on Mr. Nanos. First of all, I just want to say thank you. Seriously, thank you for coming back and supporting this channel. The love you've shown on my previous videos, through your likes, your comments, and your subscriptions, it honestly means more than I can put into words. To be completely honest with you, I'm overwhelmed. I really am. With just 2 videos out, I expected some response, but what you all have shown is far beyond that. The level of interest, the engagement, the support, it's incredible. And I truly appreciate every single one of you. And I want to tell you something right now. After this video, the next one I'm working on is going to be a powerful one. Something deeper, something important. So make sure you don't miss it. Well, without wasting any more time, let me start by giving you my personal take on this case, on Nancy. Because later in this video, I'm going to ask you 5 very important questions. Questions that will challenge how you think about everything you've seen and heard so far. And especially after watching this full video, where I've put together a lot of information, including details about the Pima County Police Department, you'll be in a much better position to answer them. There's a lot in this video, a lot of behind-the-scenes information, but presented in a clear sequence so you can actually connect the dots. And yes, this video is going to focus heavily on Sheriff Nanos and what I believe is a complete mess. Now, my take on Nancy. I mentioned this earlier, and I'm sorry to say this. I truly am. But I don't believe Nancy is alive anymore. And I hope, honestly, I pray that I am wrong. But based on what we know, the blood found outside the door, that alone tells a story. I believe that when the abductor came, there was a struggle. During that moment, Nancy may have been struck. She could have passed out right then, or possibly died at that moment. Or maybe survived for a few hours, maybe even a day. But in my opinion, she did not survive long after the abduction. And the behavior that followed supports that theory. The abductor tried to get ransom money, but without any real proof of life. No photo, no recording, no phone call with the family, nothing that would actually confirm she was alive. Just think about it. And once he got rid of her body, everything went silent, because at that point, there was nothing left to negotiate with. And let me say something else, something I know some of you already suspect. This does not feel like a one-person operation. I don't believe this was a one-man job. I believe more than one person was involved. I could be wrong, but there are moments where I feel like this case needs deeper investigation, especially when it comes to Sheriff Nanos himself. Why did he act the way he did? There are really only 2 possibilities here. 1, he is simply in the wrong profession. Someone who was given a role he was not capable of handling. Or 2, he intentionally mishandled aspects of this case. Whether that was to cover something up, disrupt evidence, or push for a quick closure for reasons we don't yet understand. But what happened instead was that the case gained too much attention, from the public, from the media, and suddenly controlling the narrative wasn't so easy anymore. The timeline of Nancy Guthrie's disappearance is disturbingly simple. On the evening of January 31st, 2026, Nancy, an 84-year-old woman, and the mother of Today's Show co-host, Savannah Guthrie, was taken from her home in the Catalina foothills just outside Tucson. There were no signs that she left voluntarily. Her wallet, her phone, her car, everything was still there. That alone tells you something was very wrong. Authorities from the Pima County Sheriff's Department responded quickly, and almost immediately they suspected foul play. That suspicion became even more serious when bloodstains were found at the scene, later confirmed through DNA testing to be Nancy's. There was also a disturbing piece of digital evidence, a doorbell camera, tampered with, but still capturing a brief and chilling glimpse, an armed, masked individual on the property around the time Nancy disappeared. This case didn't stay local for long. It exploded onto national news, not just because of the connection to Savannah Guthrie, but because of how terrifying the situation was. An elderly woman taken from her own home. Soon, federal agencies like the FBI and U.S. Customs and Border Protection joined the investigation. From the outside, it looked like a full-scale, urgent response. Something wasn't right. As days turned into weeks, cracks began to show. And slowly, the focus started shifting from "Where is Nancy?" to "What is going on with this investigation?" Let's talk about the initial but very poor investigation. In any serious case, especially an abduction, the first 48 hours are critical. This is when evidence is fresh, witness memories are sharp, and the chances of recovery are at their highest. This is the window where precision matters most. But in this case, that window was mishandled and possibly lost. One of the most shocking decisions came just days into the investigation. The Sheriff's Department, under Sheriff Chris Nanos, released the crime scene, Nancy's home, back to the family. Let that sink in. A primary crime scene released early. In law enforcement, that's not just a mistake. That's a major breach of protocol. Because once a scene is contaminated, you can never truly recover what was lost. And even Sheriff Nanos later admitted that maybe the scene should have been held longer. But by then, investigators actually had to go back and re-secure the home to collect additional evidence they missed the first time. And by that point, the chain of custody was already compromised, which means any new evidence found becomes questionable. Now, this didn't go unnoticed. Retired NYPD Lieutenant Michael Gould, an experienced search and rescue expert, publicly criticized this move. He stated clearly there was no urgency to release that scene. Nancy lived alone. There was no operational pressure forcing that decision. According to him, holding the scene wasn't optional. It was essential, because even the smallest detail, fibers, fingerprints, trace evidence, could have been the key to solving this case. But that wasn't the only issue. Another critical decision raised serious concerns. Cadaver dogs, highly trained canine units used to detect human remains, were initially deployed. And then, suddenly, they were pulled back, put on hold. Michael Gould called this a critical misstep, because in cases involving elderly victims, investigators must consider every possibility from the very beginning, including the worst-case scenario. Removing one of the most effective tools for locating remains, that doesn't just slow an investigation, it weakens it, and it raises a serious question. Were they fully committed to finding Nancy, or had assumptions already been made? Because according to some law enforcement insiders, the case may have been misclassified early on. Instead of treating it as a criminal abduction, it may have initially been approached as a search and rescue situation, meaning valuable time was lost, and potentially the suspect gained a critical head start. Now let's switch to Sheriff Nanos' decisions and the leadership concerns. As the investigation continued, the focus began shifting more and more toward one individual, Sheriff Chris Nanos, because the decisions that followed raised even more questions. One of the most controversial involved DNA evidence. There were mixed DNA samples found at the scene, samples that required advanced analysis. Instead of sending them to the FBI's lab in Quantico, they were sent to a private lab in Florida. The official explanation? Consistency. But that explanation didn't sit well with many, because according to sources, including former Chief Deputy Richard Castigar, there may have been tension between Sheriff Nanos and the FBI. Allegedly, a lack of cooperation, possibly even resistance. Nanos denied these claims, calling them crazy, but the decision itself, it raised eyebrows, because the FBI has some of the most advanced forensic capabilities in the world. And choosing a slower private option in a time-sensitive case doesn't align with urgency. Concerns didn't stop there. There were also questions about experience within the department. Reports suggested that the sergeant leading the homicide unit had never handled a homicide case before. In a case of this magnitude, that's a serious concern, and it points to a deeper issue: leadership and staffing decisions. Then came the media handling, or lack of it. In high-profile cases, communication is everything. Clear updates, consistent messaging, public trust. But instead, there were scattered interviews, contradictions, moments of defensiveness. At one point, Sheriff Nanos even stated, "I'm not used to everyone hanging on to my every word and then holding me accountable," which, for a public official, is a concerning admission. Michael Gould didn't hold back. He attributed these issues to ego, poor judgment, and politics. Even analysts like Emily Campagno publicly criticized the handling, calling it absolute incompetence. And perhaps most telling was the reaction from inside the department itself. Sergeant Aaron Cross, president of the Deputies Organization, described the case as an ego case. Eventually, a unanimous vote of no confidence was issued against Sheriff Nanos from his own deputies. Turning to the public backlash and escalation now. At this point, the investigation had turned into something much bigger. Not just a missing person case, but a crisis of leadership. The community's trust began to collapse, and that frustration turned into action. A formal recall effort was launched on March 12, 2026. The goal? To remove Sheriff Nanos from office. Organizers cited a complete loss of public trust, and while Nanos dismissed it as political, the movement gained momentum. Then, more information surfaced. Past disciplinary issues, suspensions, controversies from earlier in his career, even recent incidents, including legal and administrative concerns. All of it adding fuel to an already growing fire. The Pima County Board of Supervisors stepped in, launching a formal review, demanding answers, possibly even considering removal. Inside the department, morale dropped. Officers were frustrated, some embarrassed, and one message became clear, both internally and publicly. Confidence in leadership was gone. Now I want to hear from you, because this case is far from over. If you believe accountability matters, if you believe investigations should be handled with integrity, then share this video. Spread awareness. Our summary, and then questions I want to ask you. As of today, nearly 3 months later, Nancy Guthrie is still missing. No clear answers, no resolution, and an investigation that appears to have stalled. But beyond the disappearance itself, what stands out is the failure. A failure in process, a failure in decisions, and most importantly, a failure in Sheriff's leadership. Here are those 5 questions I mentioned earlier. 1. Do you truly believe Nancy is still alive? Not hope, but your honest belief. 2. Do you think the sheriff handled this case properly? 3. Would you trust someone like Sheriff Nanos to lead your community? Oh boy. 4. Will you start looking deeper into the background of officials before voting in the future? 5. And finally, have you supported this video? Liked, subscribed, and shared it? If you haven't already, please take a quick second to subscribe, like, and share these videos with your family and friends. It honestly takes less time than it just took me to ask you. Go ahead, and please push those buttons to keep me active. And I'll be back soon with another powerful video I'm currently working on. Until then, keep Nancy in your thoughts and prayers. Take care of yourself and the people around you. Thank you, and bye for now.